I left my reading glasses at the pharmacy counter after picking up my blood pressure medication. That small, forgettable mistake cracked open something I wish I'd never seen. My name is Howard Calloway. I'm 64 years old, recently retired from 31 years as a structural inspector for the city of Portland, Oregon. I live alone in the same house I bought with my wife Eleanor in 1989, the one with the big Douglas fir in the backyard that she always said looked like it was watching over us. She passed from ovarian cancer 9 years ago. After that, it was just me, the house, and the tree. I'm telling you this because context matters. You need to understand what kind of man I was before all this happened. I was not a suspicious person. I believed in giving people the benefit of the doubt, in assuming the best until proven otherwise. 31 years of inspecting bridges and load-bearing walls will do that to you. You learn to trust what you can measure, and you extend grace to everything else. My son and I had always been close. He's 41, married, 2 kids in middle school. He works in commercial real estate in the Portland area, or at least that's what he'd been telling me for years. We have breakfast together most Sundays at a little diner near my house called Kettleman's. He'd always order the same thing: veggie scramble, no toast, black coffee, just like his mother used to. Those Sunday mornings were the thing I looked forward to most that week. That particular Thursday in March, he'd called and asked if I wanted to meet for lunch instead. Said he was in my neighborhood for a client showing and thought we could grab something. We ended up at a sandwich place on Burnside, sat for about 90 minutes, talked about his kid's soccer league, my volunteer work at the VA, the usual easy conversation. He seemed fine, maybe a little distracted, but he'd been busy lately, or so he said. After lunch, I stopped at the pharmacy 2 blocks away to pick up my lisinopril. I handed over my insurance card, chatted with the pharmacist's assistant about the rain, took my bag, and walked to my car. I was halfway home when I realized I'd set my glasses on the pickup counter and never picked them back up. They were progressive lenses, not cheap, and I needed them to drive at night. So I turned around. The pharmacy wasn't crowded when I came back. There was a young woman behind the consultation window, mid-20s, name tag said Sophie. She'd been there the last few times I'd come in, always efficient, always pleasant. She looked up when I walked in, and something shifted in her expression. "Mr. Prabal, Calloway?" She glanced toward the side door, then back at me. "Can I talk to you for a second?" "Not here." "Can you come back to the consultation room?" I thought she'd found my glasses and just wanted to give them to me privately for some reason, but she was holding them already, and she didn't hand them over. "Your glasses are here," she said quietly, sliding them across the counter. "But that's not. I need to show you something, and I want you to know I've been sitting here for the last 45 minutes, trying to decide whether it's my place." She pulled out her phone with steady hands, which told me she'd already made the decision before I walked back in. "After you left, your son stayed," she said. "He was on the phone at the end of the pickup aisle. I was restocking the consultation display. Right there, he couldn't see me, and I heard him say your name." She pressed play. The audio was clear, my son's voice, the same one I'd been hearing since he was 3 years old learning to read. "She's got the paperwork ready." He already signed the first set when he thought it was just updating the health proxy. He doesn't read things carefully anymore. He never did. We just need the bank authorization and the investment transfer docs, and we're done. The Burnside property alone is worth almost $800,000. Add the retirement accounts, the pension, we're talking close to $2 million once we liquidate everything. No, she's handling the notary. "It's done, Mom. It's already done." He trusts me completely. He'd never think to check. I stood there holding my glasses. Sophie stopped the recording. "I'm sorry," she said. I'm so sorry. I have an elderly grandfather. I just couldn't." I asked her to send it to me. She already had. She'd sent it to the email connected to my pharmacy account before I'd even walked back through the door. I drove home. I don't remember the drive. I remember parking in my driveway and sitting in the car for a long time looking at the Douglas fir in the backyard and thinking about Eleanor, about how she used to say my son had her eyes. I sat there until it got dark. Inside, I made myself a cup of tea and listened to the recording 4 more times. She. The paperwork. The notary. He already signed the first set. My daughter-in-law's name is June. She's an estate planning paralegal. Has been for 12 years. I'd always liked her. Quiet, organized, good to my grandkids. She'd offered, about 4 months earlier, to help me update my estate documents. Said she had connections with a good attorney, that my paperwork was outdated, and it would be better to sort it out now rather than leave it to probate. I'd thought it was thoughtful of her. Considerate. I let her schedule the appointments, bring the documents, explain the pages I needed to sign. I thought of every page I'd signed in the last 4 months. I hadn't read a single one carefully. The next morning, I called Frank DeSoto. Frank had been my closest friend since we worked together in city planning in the late 90s. He retired from the county assessor's office 2 years before me, and his daughter is a certified financial forensic accountant. He met me at my house at 8 in the morning and listened to the recording without saying a single word. When it ended, he set my phone down on the kitchen table. "Tom," he said, "he's always called me Tom. Nobody else does. You need to call an attorney today. Your own attorney, not anyone connected to June or your son. Someone completely separate." "I know," I said, "but first I need to know what I've already signed." Frank's daughter Brianna came over that afternoon. She went through every document I could find, every signature I'd put on anything in the past year. She found 3 instruments I hadn't understood when I signed them. One was a durable financial power of attorney that gave my son authority over all my accounts, not just in the event of incapacity, but effectively immediately, structured so he could act without any medical verification. The second was a beneficiary change on my largest IRA, redirecting it entirely to a family trust I'd never heard of. The third was a signature page for something called a revocable asset transfer agreement. Brianna's face went tight when she saw it. "This transfers your house into a living trust," she said, "with your son listed as the sole successor trustee and beneficiary. There's a clause in here that allows him to liquidate trust assets for what it calls administrative expenses at his discretion. If this had been recorded with the county, you'd have effectively handed him the house." Had it been recorded? She checked her laptop. "Not yet, but the paperwork is complete. It's ready to file." I sat in my kitchen in the house Eleanor and I had bought when our son was 7 years old and tried to understand that he had been planning to take it. The headaches I'd had since January suddenly made sense in a different way. Not poison this time, just stress, the particular grinding anxiety of a man being slowly managed by the person he trusted most. The confusion I'd occasionally felt when reviewing the documents June brought over, the way my son had gently steered conversations away from any mention of me speaking to my own financial advisor. He'd said he didn't want me to waste money on someone unnecessary when June knew exactly what she was doing. She did. That was the problem. Brianna connected me with her own attorney that same evening, a woman named Patricia Good, who specialized in elder financial abuse cases. I told her everything. She listened without interrupting. "This is a textbook elder financial exploitation scheme," she said. "The power of attorney alone is actionable. The IRA beneficiary change may be challengeable depending on whether you were given adequate disclosure. The asset transfer, since it wasn't recorded, is the easiest to unwind. But I want you to understand, this is a crime. In Oregon, financial exploitation of a vulnerable person is a Class B felony. You don't have to file a complaint, but you should know that's the legal weight of what they were doing." "He's my son," I said. "I know," she said. "I hear that a lot in this work." For 2 days I didn't call him. I went about my regular routine. Coffee in the morning, a walk around the neighborhood, lunch at home, and afternoon reading on the back porch. I sat under the Douglas fir. I thought about every Sunday breakfast at Kettleman's. I thought about teaching him to drive a stick shift in the parking lot of a church on a rainy Saturday in 1999. I thought about the eulogy he gave at Eleanor's funeral, which made 3 rows of people cry, including me. And I thought about the recording. He'd said I'd never think to check. He was right. I wouldn't have. On the 3rd day I called him and asked him to come over that Saturday morning. Said I wanted to go over some of my financial paperwork with him, that I'd been thinking about making some changes. His voice had a quality I recognized. Warmth, the warm voice he used when he thought something was going his way. "Of course, Dad," he said. "I'll bring June." "Actually, just you," I said. "I want it to be us for now." A brief pause. "Sure, absolutely." He arrived at 10. He looked like himself. My son, in the jacket he'd had for years, the gray starting at his temples. He hugged me at the door. I let him. We sat at the kitchen table where his homework used to spread across every inch of surface. I put the recording on speaker before he'd even taken his coat off. He went still. I let it play to the end. Dad, don't, I said. I've heard it 12 times. I don't need an explanation of what it is. He sat down. He looked at his hands. How bad is the money? I asked. He didn't answer right away. Then, bad. How bad? We're about 300,000 underwater, he said. The commercial portfolio collapsed after 2 of my anchor clients pulled out last year. I've been covering the gap with our savings, and then with credit lines, and then with credit lines. And then there's nothing left. We're 4 months behind on the mortgage. June's firm doesn't know yet. If they audit her paralegal account activity, she could lose her license. So you decided to take my house and my retirement accounts instead. We were going to pay it back. He said it without looking up. You were going to pay back $2 million from what exactly? He didn't answer. When did you start planning this? About a year ago, he said quietly. After the second big client pulled out, June said. She knew a way. She said if we structured it right, we could access your assets temporarily, stabilize everything, and then... There's no and then thing, I said. You know that. Once those accounts are liquidated, there is no paying back. That money is gone. I would have been gone. He looked up then, and his face did something I didn't expect. It broke, not the calculated expression of someone trying to manage the situation. Something real, something I hadn't seen on his face since he was a child, and he'd broken the living room window playing baseball and came inside to tell me before I even knew it had happened. I know, he said. I know, Dad. I've thought about that moment many times in the months since. Whether it was real or whether I wanted it to be real so badly that I made it so. I still don't have a clear answer. What about your mother? I said. I heard myself say it before I'd decided to. Your son said Mom on that recording. He already signed the first set. He looked up sharply. Your grandmother, I clarified. My ex-wife Connie. We divorced when my son was 12. A quiet ending to a marriage that had run out of road. She lived outside Sacramento. We hadn't spoken in years except through the occasional email about the grandkids. Are you telling me Connie was involved in this? He said nothing, which was the answer. I picked up my phone and called Connie that evening. She answered on the second ring. I know, she said before I'd said anything more than her name. Howard, I know why you're calling. Then save us both some time, she cried. I don't know what I expected. Maybe the calculating detachment I'd half prepared myself for? But she cried, and it sounded real. My situation is very bad, she said. My second husband, the one I left you for, has medical debt from 2 surgeries and a long-term care situation, and it is genuinely catastrophic. I'm not making excuses. I know what we were planning. I know what it was. You know it's a felony, I said. Yes. You helped your son plan to steal from me. She was quiet for a long time. I told myself it was borrowing. I told myself you were comfortable, that you had more than you needed, that we weren't hurting anyone who'd really notice. I told myself a lot of things, Howard. None of them were true. I hung up. Patricia Good had the power of attorney revoked within a week. The IRA beneficiary change was reversed. The asset transfer document, the one for the house, was destroyed before it was ever filed with Multnomah County. Brianna's forensic review confirmed that no accounts had actually been accessed. My son had the authority on paper, but had not yet used it. Whether because he was waiting or stalling or some remaining part of him couldn't go through with it, I don't know, and I may never know. Patricia laid out my options clearly. File a complaint with Oregon's Department of Justice Elder Financial Abuse Unit. That would almost certainly result in criminal charges. Given June's role as a paralegal and the deliberate legal structuring of the documents, prosecutors would likely pursue it aggressively. My son and June could both face felony charges. My son might go to prison. June would almost certainly lose her professional license permanently, in addition to any criminal exposure. My grandchildren were 13 and 11. I did not file the complaint. Instead, I called my son and told him to come to my house again, this time with June, and this time with Patricia Good present. We sat in my living room on a Tuesday afternoon in April. Patricia spread documents across my coffee table. Your father has chosen not to involve law enforcement, she said to them, on the condition that you both understand and execute the following. She walked them through it. My son would have no legal authority over any of my affairs, financial or medical, for the remainder of his natural life, unless I chose to reinstate it, which I did not anticipate doing. June would sign an acknowledgment, reviewed by an independent attorney of her choosing, admitting to the preparation of fraudulent estate documents. That acknowledgment would be held in sealed storage by Patricia's firm. If anything irregular happened to me or to my assets, under any circumstances, it would be released in full to law enforcement and to June's employer. My son sat across from me and didn't argue. He looked like a man who had already accepted something. "I want to say something," he said at the end. "Go ahead," I said. "I know there's nothing I can say that changes what we did. I know that. I just need you to know that the version of me who agreed to this, I don't recognize them. I don't know how I got there. The fear of losing everything, the shame of it, the idea of telling the people who depended on me that I'd failed. I couldn't face it. I should have called you. I should have just called you and said, 'Dad, I'm in trouble. I need help.' That's all I had to do." I looked at him across my kitchen table, this man who used to be afraid of thunderstorms and wouldn't go to sleep until I checked the closet, and I didn't say anything for a while. "You're right," I finally said. "That's all you had to do." They left. The house was quiet. I sat with Patricia for a few minutes finishing our coffee. She's seen a lot of these cases, she told me. Not all of them end with the family still technically intact. I told her I wasn't sure mine had either, not the way it was. That was 7 months ago. My son has called 3 times. I've answered twice. The conversations were short, careful. Neither of us quite sure where the floor was. He told me he and June are in therapy together, which is something. He told me they're selling their house voluntarily, downsizing, trying to pay off what they can. I didn't ask for updates on that, and he stopped offering them. My grandchildren don't know anything. I send them cards on their birthdays and at Christmas. I'll probably see them this summer at some point. Whatever happens between me and my son, those kids are innocent, and I won't let this reach them. The IRA is intact. The house is mine. The Douglas fir is still in the backyard, watching over things the way Eleanor always said it did. I went back to the pharmacy the week after everything settled. Sophie was behind the consultation window. I'd brought a card and a Visa gift card for $300, which felt inadequate and also like the only thing I could actually do. She tried to give it back, and I told her it wasn't negotiable. "You didn't have to do that," she said. "You didn't have to show me that recording," I said. "But you did. Because of you, my house is still my house, and my retirement accounts are still mine. And I got to confront my son while there was still something left to confront. That's worth more than a gift card. I know that, but it's what I've got." She laughed a little. "She has her grandfather's eyes," she'd told me. I understood that in a particular way now. I still go to Kettleman's on Sunday mornings, but alone now. I sit at a window table and order the same breakfast I always have, and I read the paper with my progressive lenses, and I watch Portland wake up. People ask me sometimes whether I made the right call, not filing that complaint. I've turned it over hundreds of times. My son committed a serious crime, or attempted to, and he's walking free because I couldn't bear to be the father who handed his son to the state. Part of me knows that sentiment winning out over justice. Part of me thinks watching your own scheme collapse, losing the relationship with your father, living with what you were willing to do, that's not nothing. That can eat a person alive if they let it. I hope he lets it, not because I want him to suffer, but because I want whatever came back online in him that Tuesday afternoon in my living room to stay on. Connie sent a letter. Handwritten, 3 pages, the first letter I'd received from her since before Eleanor died. I read it twice and put it in a drawer. I haven't responded. I don't know that I will. There's a particular thing that happens when someone you love reveals they see you differently than you thought. Not as a father, not as a person, but as a number on a balance sheet. It doesn't just hurt. It rearranges something structural inside you, the way a crack in a load-bearing wall changes the whole integrity of a building. You can patch it. You can monitor it. But it's never quite the same wall again. I spent 31 years inspecting structures for hidden damage. I should have known that the most important things to inspect are always the ones you assume are solid. I'm 64 years old. I'm healthy. I'm active. And if the last 9 months have taught me anything, it's that I have a lot of years left, and I intend to be deliberate about them. I've updated my state documents with Patricia's firm, real documents, transparent ones, with a professional fiduciary I found through the Oregon State Bar Referral Service. I've set up automatic alerts on every financial account I own. I've told Frank to check in on me if I go quiet for more than a week. And every Thursday, rain or shine, I pick up my medication at the pharmacy on Burnside. I make sure to keep my glasses in my jacket pocket. I keep them close now. You'd be surprised what you see when you're finally paying attention. So I want to ask you, where in the world are you hearing this right now? And have you ever had a moment when something small, some forgotten, ordinary thing, turned out to be the thing that changed everything? Tell me in the comments. I read everyone. And if there's someone in your life you've been meaning to check in on, an older parent, a neighbor, a friend who lives alone, maybe do that today. Not because something is wrong, just because it matters, and we don't always know when the clock is running. Take care of yourselves out there, and take care of each other. I've been turning this over for 7 months now, and I keep coming back to the same place. Not anger, not grief exactly. Something quieter than both of those. Something that feels like standing in a room you've lived in for decades and realizing the walls are an inch thinner than you thought. What my son did wasn't random. That's the part that took me the longest to absorb. It wasn't a moment of weakness or a single bad decision made in panic. It was a plan. It had timelines and documents and a notary. It required him to sit across from me at Kettleman's on Sunday mornings, order his veggie scramble, ask about my volunteer work at the VA, and know what he was building behind my back. He had to choose that, over and over, for close to a year. Every choice he made had a consequence he didn't fully account for. Not the legal consequence, not the financial one, but the one that can't be undone. I will never fully trust him again. That's not punishment, I decided to hand him. It's just what happens when you break something load-bearing. The weight redistributes. The structure's never quite the same. And I think about June, who spent 12 years building expertise in estate planning, real expertise, the kind that takes discipline and focus, and then turned it toward dismantling her own father-in-law's life. She had the skills to do almost anything with that knowledge. She chose this. There's a particular kind of waste in that, a waste of intelligence and capability that I find almost as troubling as the betrayal itself. Talent without integrity isn't the gift. It's just a more sophisticated way to cause damage. Sophie didn't have to say anything to me. She was 20-something years old, working a pharmacy counter shift, and she heard a conversation that wasn't her business and decided it was. She made that call alone, in the middle of a workday, knowing she might be wrong, knowing it might go badly, knowing it wasn't her job. She did it anyway. That's not naivety. That's moral clarity. It's rare as in people realize, and it costs something to act on it. I want to remember that when the world feels like it's trending toward everyone minding their own business until the building collapses, what I've come to understand is that the people who came through in this story, Sophie, Frank, Brianna, didn't come through because they were obligated to. They came through because of who they've been building themselves into, quietly, over time, long before this situation ever arrived. Character isn't something you summon in a crisis. It's something you either have or you don't by the time the crisis shows up. I spent 31 years inspecting infrastructure for hidden damage. I know that a crack ignored doesn't stay small. It spreads under pressure, and pressure always comes eventually. The same is true in the life of a person and in the life of a family. The things we avoid saying, the choices we rationalize, the slow drift toward what's convenient over what's right, those don't stay contained. They surface. They always surface. I'm 64. I have time left, and I intend to spend it paying attention. To the people around me, to the small signs I used to wave off, to the difference between someone who shows up and someone who performs showing up. Those are not the same thing, and I spent too long treating them as if they were. Keep your glasses close. You'd be surprised what you see when you're finally looking.